This program is being provided by the 15 members of the Vancouver Educational Telecommunications Consortium, TV, etc.
Okay, well, thank you guys for being here. I know it's getting late. I'm going to talk really fast. I'm gonna make the interpreters work really hard. You will have to listen quickly. I hope this is an interesting topic to you. And I guess a couple things. I hope you would look at a topic of child exploitation, or specifically domestic minor sex trafficking in Clark County. I would hope you go, why would we even talk about that here? The unfortunate reality is we do have a problem. So what I'm going to start with, for the next hour, is I have some videos we're going to go back and forth through. I'm going to show a video that was done by an organization. It's actually located here in the Vancouver, Clark County area. And it's going to kind of give you a national overview of what domestic violence sex trafficking looks like. And then I'm going to break it down what's going on here in Clark County. We're going to talk about some very specific cases and kind of maybe give you an idea of what to do as parents and teachers and whoever is here. And I guess even as parents that are here, the fact that you're here probably means you won't have this kind of problem at home. But some of your kids' friends might. And hopefully you'll see some things here that might alert you to go, wow, that could be a potential problem and what we can do with that. So currently responsible, I work our detective division, so I'm responsible for our major crimes detectives, which go into the homicides. I also do our children's justice center, which deals with child abuse issues, our domestic violence unit, along with our computer forensic lab. So, I think if we look back and kind of stereotype, I know I have a button somewhere to get rid of this. Stereotype what we probably thought of as, sex trafficking. We might have envisioned girls being brought over from another country against their will over here, and it's going on. And a lot of the organizations, when they started, like Shared Hope, for instance, that's exactly what they were doing. They were trying to combat, girls that were brought overseas and brought here in the United States. And as they started looking into the United States, they realized we have our own problem right here. I'm really going to get rid of this somehow. In 2003, the FBI initiated an operation called, I'm just totally blanked out. I can't do two things at once. The Innocence Lost Project. And what that was they recognized we had all these girls and we needed someone to help them. That's why when you see why are FBI agents being interviewed in some of these investigations is because they realize it's a big problem. It crosses state lines. It's kids that are being exploited as young as 10, 12 years old. They obviously can't make the decision to want to be involved in commercial sex activity. So again, they did this. We now have a Innocence Lost project here in the Portland metro area, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Might think of it. There we go. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw this a couple weeks ago. It was in the newspaper. This is our Clark County paper, where Lawrence Taylor, those of you that are football fans, was probably one of the greatest linebackers ever in the NFL. He got caught with a 16-year-old girl, which we call a prostitute. Again, we would argue this is a prostituted girl. She doesn't have the ability to make that choice for herself. And if you read the article a little bit further, she was forced into prostitution by a pimp that was beating her. Lawrence Taylor ends up with her and gets caught. Okay. The United States has what's called the Traffic Victims Protection Act, which was enacted in 2000, and it says girls under the age of 18 cannot make the decision to be involved in commercial sex trade. Therefore, they're a victim. He's a suspect. It'll be interesting to watch to see what money does for him and see what happens, because part of the defense is the fact that you didn't know she was underage, which of course everybody says, is not a defense. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The same weekend, in the little throwaway Parade magazine section, was this article kind of in the back. This is about an organization in New York City. One of the girls that formed it, was a former prostituted underage girl. And Demi Moore now has learned about the plight of some of these girls, and she and her husband felt it was a big deal and wanted to raise money for it, which is great. And again, I'm just bringing you this because it's kind of coming from all over. If I go back a year ago, I didn't know anything about this. So one of the reasons I want to talk to you guys is I'm kind of in the police business for 26 years. I don't know anything about it. My assumption is that maybe you don't know about it either, because it kind of is below the radar, and it's certainly below our radar here in Clark County. What was interesting, if you go online and a little further back in that article, they do an actual interview with Demi Moore. And not that I'm a huge Demi Moore fan, but I just thought it was kind of interesting what she said. And it was, people need to know, we have to be aware of what's going on. And she says, everyone should watch this playground video. And on heroin. And we have gangs that have now found taking girls and trafficking them as very profitable. These girls can go get $250 to $300 an hour. You have them do 10 tricks a day. You're making a lot of money. It's a lot easier than stand on the corner selling drugs. It's a lot easier than selling guns. Okay, so it's big money, and it's become a problem with gang members. Okay, that's going to be a bigger problem. It's an emerging problem that we're fighting. I want to talk about Operation Cross Country. You guys may have heard about it. It was in the news. Last time we did one was the October 22nd of 2009. Well, back in February of 2009 was Operation Cross Country 3. And what this is, under that Innocence Lost task force that I was speaking about with the FBI, they do a nationwide project where they say, hey, we're going to take between Thursday night and Sunday, we're going to go out and do stings and do other kinds of things and see how many of these girls we can rescue across the nation. And when they did it back in February of 2009, they ended up with 2 girls from Clark County. One, they've caught her down in Clackamas, another, they caught her over in Portland. In June, in about May, just of last year, so just 1 year ago, one of our patrol sergeants out on the east side of town decided he was going to do a project and kind of do some, let's see what kind of criminal activity we're having that goes on around some of the hotels here in Vancouver. And as he looked, he really thought it was going to be more drug problems, maybe people doing identity theft, maybe some prostitution. So he began talking to some of the detectives over in the Portland Vice Unit, and they said, I think you got a little bit of a juvenile prostitution problem. And we're like, we've never heard of that. I mean, we've heard of it, but not here in Vancouver. And so Operation Cross Country 4 came around, and we had been going over there in the Portland Metro, and they have a metro region that meets regularly, a group of people, and we participated in them. And we said, hey, well, before we go out and tell everybody what a big problem we have, let's find out if we have a problem at all. And so we participated in this Operation Cross Country 4. What we did, we got together a whole bunch of people. We got this house to use for a night. It's over on the east side of town, actually over by near Evergreen High School. But it doesn't matter. It could have been anywhere in Clark County. And then we had our 3 computer forensic people get on the internet and just start looking for girls. And again, it's illegal to advertise underage and sex. Okay, that would be child pornography. And so that in itself is illegal. But what these girls do, they never advertise themselves as underage, but they do a lot of things like barely legal, or 19 is kind of the new 16 in this creepy world. So they just started looking for girls that looked as though they were underage, and then started making contact with them. We had an undercover officer in this house. He was making the phone calls for them, and he was from the ICE, the Immigration Customs Agency. And we had like an arrest team set up there. We had a computer team set up there. We had people doing evidence there. On the garage on the right side of the screen, we had it set up where we backed a car in, and when we made an arrest, we put them in the car, drive away, another car would come in, back in, close the door, and we were ready for business again. It was literally like a 2-minute process of kind of cleaning the house back out. We ended up with 9 girls that night. Only 2 of them were underage, which is horrible. We had a 16-year-old who brought a gun with her, and we had a 17-year-old girl who had been doing this quite a while. To give you an idea, when we made I say arrest, we didn't arrest them, but when we, made the detention of these girls, we found her math homework in the car she was in. We also arrested 3 pimps that night. So, it was really good, but it really opened our eyes to what's out here. And of course, the reason we got other girls that were adults is because it's really just a guessing game. Was this girl old enough or not by looking at a picture on the internet? So we did end up with 7 adult girls. Anyway, it was really very disturbing, and what we did is we worked with the YWCA and Joan Renner, who may have met today. She was there. We had a team of advocates there. We had people from CPS. And our whole goal was, we're not trying to arrest these girls, we're trying to rescue them out of this lifestyle. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because you might be sitting there and go, why would any girl do this? Or like they said on the screen a minute ago, we all viewed it as a victimless crime. And I would tell you, I was guilty of that too. And I've since learned it's not a victimless crime because these girls don't see a way out. And they've been manipulated in. I'm going to show you a couple videos later all about manipulation. And they get in and they don't know how to get out. They can't see a way out. And that's why I brought back, or was talking about the girls in Battleground. Because once I have these girls hooked on heroin, I own them, I can control them, I can make them do whatever I need to do. And then also, going past that, they'll do anything to be happy, and then how about if I photograph them later doing whatever I need them to do? And now they can't go back to their families either, because they have issues of shame, guilt, and all those problems that they can't, and so they don't see a way out. They can't find it and become that life of living under a pimp. It becomes normalized and socialized to them where they just don't see a way out of it. So I think I mentioned most of these were our results from our night on October 22nd. Across the United States, 52 girls were recovered, 84 pimps arrested. Seattle had the most in the nation with 10. Again, we're on this I-5 corridor. It's a big issue. These girls are being trafficked up and down. Our proximity to Portland makes us a real popular area. Again, we had the 2 female juveniles recovered. We did seize a vehicle. We took the guy's car because what he was doing, he had his own computer set up in the front seat with a router and the wireless thing, and he was just driving around, taking her places right on the spot. So it was, we ended up seizing that car. We wrote search warrants, get more information, all kinds of stuff. Our population that's a problem, and you might have picked up on some of these videos, is, well, we kind of call them our high-risk victims. And how would I categorize it? Obviously, gals, and I'm speaking really predominantly about young girls because they're by far and away the majority of the issue. There are boys involved in this, but the girls are the most likely victims. And what happens is a sergeant in the Dallas Police Department, he was working a child exploitation unit. He's trying to figure out what is the deal that's causing these kids to get involved. And he actually learned that if a girl ran away more than 4 times in a year, she had an 80% chance of being involved in sex trafficking. And it wasn't the runaway issue, it's that every time she leaves the house, she goes out a little further and is a little more vulnerable, and a little more, and a little more. And I'm going to play some videos for you in a little bit. Listen to the way the pimps talk. Listen to what they're looking for, because these guys are master manipulators. And they can be very charismatic guys, and they come on to these girls that are alone. I'm going to play you a video from that was done by the New York Times. And you're probably going, why am I listening to New York? But what's interesting is they come back to Medford, Oregon. So there's a segment on there I want you to see, but they're looking for these girls, they know who to look for, and they know how to manipulate, and they come in as the boyfriend. And that's how it starts. They don't ever walk up and go, hi, I'm a pimp, I just want to know if you want to be a prostitute. They're the boyfriend, and that's where it starts, and the whole manipulation starts. So we've kind of developed, we copied some of the information we learned. We didn't have to reinvent it in Vancouver and Clark County, and we started kind of creating our own high-risk victim look. And so what we're going to be doing as we find these girls that are chronic runaways, we're going to identify them ahead of time, is when they're picked up, no matter what, it could be a shoplift, it could be a drug use, it could be a runaway pickup, or it could be even involved in prostitution. We're going to send a detective out right away, 24/7, to interview them. And again, our goal is to try to get them help. We're not interested in putting these girls in juvenile detention. And then I back off that a little bit, but sometimes that's the answer, because how else do we get them away from these guys and make them safe? And I guess I'll do a little plug. Just in the last legislative session, there's a new Senate bill that was passed, and it's going to provide a Safe Harbor Act for the girls in the state of Washington. I think we're the second state in the nation that has that. New York started it, and we're gonna have the ability, if we find or locate a girl in this kind of circumstances, we can hold them against their will for 15 days. And the reality is, it's kind of a deprogramming time, and it's a safety time, but it's not in detention. It's going to be at a secure facility that are other girls that are not in custody. So you might be hearing about that. It's going to be coming. This particular girl, this is a real girl. She's been involved in prostitution. She's 15 years old. She was out in this car. She was known to have a gun with her. These girls are living a very scary lifestyle, and we can't have it. She has since been rescued, and I will tell you, she is at a house on the East Coast, away from everything, by her choice. And hopefully, next time we talk, it'll be a great success story. So, let me show you this from the New York Times. It's a reporter. He just got involved in doing this. He's going to talk about, what's going on. You'll hear some of the same things from the same people. Again, when you hear the pimp that's interviewed, listen to them. Listen to how manipulative they are and how they work. Just this last week, name is changed to protect the innocent. Okay, this girl came into our police department just this week. She's 13 years old. I checked on Friday. She has 37 police reports that she's involved in our department. She's 13. Okay, that's a lot. Probably most of you, maybe you have. I mean, if anyone here had 2, that would probably be a lot. And you meant your car was stolen and somebody smashed your mailbox or something, And so any of those things would show up. It doesn't mean she was a suspect and everything. It doesn't mean she was a runaway and everything. But she's just had that many police contacts that have been documented in a police report. That's a lot. 12 of those involved being a runaway. In January of this year, she kind of came on our radar because, as you can see, this is the narrative from the report that I pulled with again, names changed. Greg is her father. Greg gets a call from George, who said he has met Mary sometime before Christmas. They had spent some time together. He liked her, wanted to meet up with her again between this time and have sex, and then he hung up the phone. The police officer is the eye. He asked Greg if he had informed George that he was Mary's father, and Greg says, no, I didn't think he knew who I was. Mary's 13 years old. There's a lot of family issues with this girl and why she's run away, and we could talk about, if we do have kids that are running away more than 4 times a year, what are they running away from? I mean, sometimes that question needs to be asked. But again, I just wanted to highlight to you, this is what's going on here in Vancouver, because this girl came in this week. Maybe some of you saw this on the news. It came out in January. This was, again, the Columbia newspaper about Brianna. Brianna's a girl, lived up in the center, relationship, but she is 18 years old, so by 1 week, so she thinks she's the smartest person that ever lived. She has that little bit of, I'm ready to get out and be on my own. I'm ready to kind of get out from under my parents and rebel a little bit. And she saw this. She had this dream of going to Seattle, taking care of herself, and going to college. She's very driven and has a lot of ideas of how she wants to succeed in life. And so what happened is, the story is an hour story, but what really happened is, this started about a year before. She worked at that little country cafe there at the Ridgefield Junction on I-5. She worked there, and for about a year, a man in his 40s came by and regularly had contact with her, and he knew all the background about her. And then one day, these 2 guys that are in their 20s come by, and they already know what her hook is, right? We kind of talked about, some girls are drugs, some are runaways, her hook was, I'm a little rebellious, and I want to get away and go have my own life in Seattle. And he already knew that, and all they did was plant the seed with her and walk in. Again, they were a little flirty with her, they had a lot of money, they had nice jewelry. They just said, hey, why don't you just come up and stay with us in Seattle? We got a great place. And they did. This is the house they took her to in Seattle. So of course, she agreed. And you know, that was like on a weekend. I think she ended up going up there on a Wednesday. I can't remember if it was a Wednesday or Thursday. This is a house in Redmond area. It overlooks a small lake there. We've since learned these guys were renting the house. I don't know the name of the guy who was the rental on the agreement. And what they did is they took her there, and you know, in her mind, stripping wasn't such a big deal because she saw it as a way to make a lot of money to have her college career. Now, you and I might go, that seems a little odd to me, and I'm just trying to get over that. But again, we're dealing with a population of kids now that also think sexting is okay. And if you don't know what that is, kids are taking pictures of themselves, nude pictures of themselves, and passing it around by telephone. And this goes on all the time in our schools. So, and that's a whole other problem we could talk about, but we're just going to stick with this one. So, these guys were very manipulative. They knew what she wanted. They took her. They went and got her hair done, her nails done, tanning booth, took her to nice restaurants, got her involved in that club. That was the actual club that she was stripping at. She stripped 2 nights. They took her cell phone away from her, gave her a new cell phone. So again, what are they doing? They're just removing all her ties back to Clark County and friends and family, and they're replacing it. And it's a slow process, but they were able to move in pretty quickly with her. The best thing that happened is her dad and mom, who didn't know she was in Seattle, they just believed she was still in Clark County and was angry with them and not coming home. Her dad gets the word to her, I think through his sister or somehow, you better get the car home or I'm going to report it stolen. And I think that was the best thing Dad could have done because, and this is Nick here that I was talking about. Nick was a football player at Central Washington University. Of course, he got caught with a trunk full of drugs, was later kicked off the football team. And he's learned this art of manipulation very fast. And I think the guy that was with him was likely the guy that was training him up. But they made a tactical error in that they let her come home alone. And I think they believed they had her hooked in enough that they would. And they really did. Except the problem was, they said, we'll meet you in Kelso. We want you to drop your car off in the center, have a friend drive you back to Kelso, we'll meet you, we'll drive you back. And she was going to be gone. The problem was she really couldn't find a friend to give her a ride back. So she calls this guy, Evan, who's her ex-boyfriend. And she's very proud of what she's doing, and she tells him the whole story, and he's like, are you crazy? And so he tells, and he's 19, and he does what most 19-year-old kids don't do. He told his dad. He's like, Dad, I'm really nervous about this. This is a really bad deal. And his dad is an acquaintance of mine. And he called me, and he knew that we'd been doing this stuff like I'm telling you right here today. He called me, and he's like, she's on her way. She's driving down right now. Again, this is Saturday before Christmas. It's nighttime now. It's about 6 p.m. And we're like, I don't know what we're going to do. And I don't know what to do. And it's very scary because she had been 18 for 1 week. So really no crime had been committed. Do I think she was coerced? Yes. Do I think she was manipulated? Yes. Was there a crime? I don't know. It didn't really fit the bill. I mean, I was just her making really bad decisions. So we're like, I don't know what to do. So I called Linda Smith. And so I'm like, who do I call? Because I didn't have I'm like, maybe I can call the YWCA. Maybe they can send an advocate over there. But my fear was, will she even talk to us? Because if she tells us, I'm not talking to you, we're done. Anyway, fortunately, Linda went over to the house, and like she described it, Brianna had nothing to do with her, didn't want to know anything. Well, Linda talked her into saying, let's just go out and get some coffee. And they sat for 2 hours, and Linda just told her, let me just tell you what I deal with. I'm not telling you what you do. I'm just going to tell you what I deal with. And the more she told Brianna, who is a very bright girl, that light went on, and she went, oh my gosh, I've been completely manipulated. As you can see, she wanted to tell this story. Her parents wanted to tell this story, which is pretty amazing. This is just like 3 weeks after this occurred. Because they recognized, if this happened to our daughter, who's again, a normal kid, a high-achieving kid, who isn't one of those high-risk victims, it can happen to anybody. And so I know a lot of people look at it and go, what a stupid girl. And she'd probably tell you, I was a stupid girl. But we should learn from this and go, how easy is it to manipulate somebody? And it's pretty frightening. So that's why her story is important. Let me tell you a real quick case. Again, Clark County case has a happy ending. This is in 2009. The date escapes me. This is St. John's Road right here. This is St. John's going north. I think this is the 49th Street right there. if you're familiar with that, and that's a picture of what the apartment complex looks like at the top. About a week before this, a 15-year-old girl and her 13-year-old sister, who live in Vancouver, were over in Oregon going to the mall. And then when they were there, they met a guy that had gone to Fort Vancouver High School that was a senior when this 15-year-old was a freshman. And she says, "Oh, there's so-and-so. Hi, how you doing?" And they started hanging out. And he said, "Oh, why don't you guys go hang out? I'm going to take you to my friend Darius, and we'll go meet up with him." And they did. And so the other guy and Darius take these girls, and of course they end up buying alcohol. They take them to a park. They get them drunk. They take them to a hotel, and they rape these two girls, 13 and 15. Later, these two guys bring the 13-year-old back to Vancouver, drop her off at the house, and Darius Yancey and the 15-year-old, he takes her up to Bellevue. And what he does there is he puts her on the internet, he advertises her, and he forces her into prostitution. And what happened on this case right here is this morning, when he was in the restroom, she broke out of the house in a t-shirt and shorts and ran up to the street to a business that she had no idea where it was or who was there, and just ran into the business and told them this story. And then the police came. And then we took her to the hospital, and you can see she's been beaten, scratches on her face. I didn't detail all the bruising all over her body. And this is what the ads look like that this guy did with her. And again, these are the kind of internet ads I'm talking about. We don't have an area like 82nd Avenue in Portland where girls are walking up and down the street, propositioning people. It's all on the internet. Okay, she's a beautiful, exotic Brazilian, barely legal girl. She's 18 years old. And they had this hotel room in the Bellevue area and had her there for days, against her will, forcing her into this. We sent detectives up there after we learned, after she made contact with the police. And you can see, this is the hotel room. You go back and see the chair, the bed she's on. So we found the same hotel room, did a search warrant, collected evidence, and there's a very happy ending in this. That's Mr. Yancey there. Those are all wads of bills on the bill of his cap. This is from his MySpace page. He is now in prison. So there is a happy ending to it. He's already been adjudicated and is in prison. So with that, I've blasted you with a lot of information. I guess my hope is that by making you aware, you can maybe see some of these signs. It may not be your daughter, but it might be your daughter's friend. And if you have one of those friends that's always a runaway, what are we going to be looking for with her? Older boyfriends is a huge, huge clue, because it's just not normal. If you have a 16-year-old girl that has a 20-something boyfriend, it's not normal. It doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen. And if she's all of a sudden shows up with nails done, hair done, has maybe a little bit of spending money, because as you can hear, these guys aren't going to give her much, because they got to control these girls. You really need to be watching out for them. I know our YWCA here in Clark County is really working. We've worked together with some of the sexual advocates here to become advocates for minor sex trafficking. So that's been a real positive thing. And so watch out for that. And the sad news is it does occur here. So what questions can I answer for any of you guys? It's late. All right, thank you guys.
This program is being provided by the 15 members of the Vancouver Educational Telecommunications Consortium, TV, etc.